The last ferry had left hours ago. Inside the Statue of Liberty, William Rivers descended the spiral staircase alone. A single metallic tap echoed from somewhere above him, sharp and deliberate.
That wasn't just metal cooling, that was intentional.
William angled his headlamp beam up the twisting staircase, but the light died in the shadow above step 354. As he passed the landing, his light caught a handprint on the copper wall that hadn't been there an hour ago.
I cleaned this section before midnight. This is impossible.
Every maintenance worker on Liberty Island learns 6 unofficial rules. The most enforced: do not climb above step 354 between midnight and 2 a.m. Officially, there are 354 steps to the crown. Unofficially, every veteran knows there is a 355th step that appears only during those hours. William reached the pedestal floor, breath shallow, and glanced back at the darkness above. The handprint was already fading.
Just thermal expansion. That's all it was.
9 years earlier, on his very first night shift, William had stood in this locker room. Joseph, the foreman with graying hair and tired eyes, handed him a sheet of paper.
The Park Service won't tell you these. We do. There are 6 of them. Rule 3. Never climb above step 354 between midnight and 2 a.m. Not for any reason.
What's the reason? Does the staircase get unstable up there?
Joseph's expression turned grim. He leaned closer.
Because that's when she calls the statue, or something that lives in her.
What do you mean, lives in her?
I mean, you keep your head down and you follow the rule. That's all you need to know.
William had nodded, but a cold seed of curiosity had planted itself in his gut. And tonight, 9 years later, as he stood in the pedestal staring at the fading handprint, that seed had broken through the surface with a cold certainty. William forced his feet to move, pushing aside the lingering unease, and began the midnight climb toward the crown. The iron steps groaned softly under his boots. At the second landing, the emergency bulb flickered twice, plunging him into darkness. When the amber glow returned, the shadows seemed deeper. Then a metallic tap rang out from above, closer than the first, a cold echo through the iron framework.
3 distinct taps in one night. That was no longer thermal expansion. That was a signal.
He remembered Rule 4 from Joseph's old sheet. Never answer a tap you cannot see. The single tap was joined by a second, then a third. They fell into a rhythm, steady as a slow heartbeat resonating through the copper walls.
The air shifted, thick and warm, as if the statue had exhaled around him. The copper skin seemed to breathe.
He pointed his headlamp straight up the twisting staircase. The beam died in blackness less than halfway to the crown.
One day, not tonight, but one day he would climb past 354 and see for himself.
He tightened his grip on the railing and forced himself upward. The tapping stopped. The silence that filled the stairwell was somehow worse. The rest of his shift passed without incident. But William couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The next day, he pulled old maintenance logs from the archive box.
This entry from '98, a technician named Peter Foley, left after only 6 months. No reason given.
But a handwritten note in the margin, scrawled in Joseph's tight script, caught his eye. Resigned after incident at Crown. Relocated.
Joseph, what happened to Peter Foley?
Joseph froze, coffee mug halfway to his lips. A muscle in his jaw tightened.
Foley left, that's all. Don't go digging into old files.
This is about the rule, isn't it? The one you won't explain. What happened to him at the Crown?
I said drop it. You don't want to know what's up there.
Joseph's voice cracked on the last word. The fear in his eyes was real, but so was William's resolve.
If Joseph won't tell me, I'll find out for myself. Tonight, when the clock hits midnight, I am climbing past 354.
At the stroke of midnight, William's steel-toed boot rested on step 354. The amber emergency bulb above him flickered once, then steadied.
354. No turning back now.
He aimed his headlamp up into the darkness. Nothing. Only the soft groan of iron expanding with the cold.
This is just hazing. Joseph's way of testing the new guys.
Then a single, sharp rivet strike echoed from above, like a hammer hitting copper. The handprint on the wall began to glow with a faint, sickly green light.
This isn't possible. Copper doesn't just glow.
The riveting sound repeated, rhythmic, deliberate, and just above step 354. The air shimmered, forming the suggestion of a 355th step.
It's real. The step is there.
He took a step back, his boot hovering over the edge of step 354, heart hammering against his ribs.
I need evidence. Something to prove this isn't some trick of the light.
That evening, William brought an audio recorder to step 354 and set it to begin recording at 11:50 p.m. When he returned hours later, the playback revealed tapping that started 9 minutes after midnight and stopped precisely at 2. He played the sample for a coworker, a veteran electrician who dismissed it as thermal contraction in the iron framework. But William had heard the sound a dozen times. Metal doesn't strike with the cadence of a hammer in a human hand. He scrubbed the handprint from the copper wall. At midnight, it reappeared, outline by outline, as if invisible fingers pressed it. He photographed it, but the camera showed only dark copper. The green glow existed only for his eyes.
It only happens on my shifts, between midnight and 2. The rule is becoming a cage, and I am trapped inside it.
The recordings followed him home. He'd wake to the imagined ping of metal, a hammer that wasn't there. He replayed the rational explanations, but each night the evidence piled higher. Logic collapsed under the weight.
There's only one thing left. I'll climb again. Armed with more than curiosity, I need proof.
Before his next shift, William cornered a gray-haired worker in the locker room, a man who had seen decades on the island. The old man spoke in whispers of other techs who heard the call and climbed, never coming back down.
They climbed and never came back. No bodies, no searches, just gone.
He mentioned a logbook, an old leather journal Joseph kept locked away, where the names of every invited worker were recorded.
A logbook from 1886. That's what Joseph hides. That's the truth behind the rule.
That night, the metallic tapping from above invaded his sleep. Each beat seemed to spell out the word logbook in his skull. He awoke with a dry mouth and a desperate need. The answers were a drawer away, and he would find a way to open it.
Joseph guards that key like his life depends on it. But he leaves the office for coffee every night at 11.
The search for the logbook consumed William, threading through every waking moment, the only ladder out of his confusion.
I'll get into that drawer, even if I have to break the lock. I need to know who climbed and why.
William slipped into the supervisor's office, while Joseph took his coffee break. He tried the drawer, locked tight.
What do you think you are doing?
I want to see the logbook, Joseph. The one you've been hiding since 1886.
That book stays locked. Some knowledge is a poison you don't drink.
You are protecting something that's tearing me apart. I hear the tapping every night.
I am protecting you. Climb past that step and you'll wish you'd never heard the name Bartholdi.
He's scared, not just for himself, for me. But that fear is a chain I can't wear.
Joseph left without another word, but the drawer didn't open. The answers remained locked, but the staircase was not.
Tonight, I climb again, not for evidence, for answers face to face.
He checked his watch. 11:30 p.m. In half an hour, the rule would be broken again, and this time he would not turn back. July 3rd, 12:08 a.m. William began the climb, counting each step under his breath. The taps from above returned, sharper now, a metallic voice that said, "Climb with every strike." He reached step 354. The handprint on the copper wall pulsed green, hot and alive. He aimed the headlamp straight up. The beam died in nothingness, but he felt something watching him from the dark. William raised his right boot, hovered it over the edge of step 354, and let it drop. The step that met his boot was solid copper, cold and old, and it hummed under his weight. He stood on step number 355. The iron railing felt warmer now, as if the statue had a fever. The air thickened, pressing against his chest. Something was standing one step above him, patient as stone. He didn't dare lift his headlamp. The darkness itself seemed to have weight. Bearing down like a held breath, William's fingers tightened on the railing. The decision was made. He would look up. He tilted his headlamp upward, and the beam caught the figure. A man stood one step above him, clad in 1880s French work clothes. His skin was the same copper green as the statue, his eyes hollow but glowing with a calm amber light. He carried a heavy riveting hammer.
You are early. Your shift has not yet begun.
The figure stepped to the side, his hammer swinging slightly, and gestured upward with one weathered hand, an invitation.
He's not attacking. He's offering me a way up, into the crown, into the dark.
The riveter waited, patient as copper. The hammer hung in his grip like it had been there for 100 years. If William took another step, he would leave the world he knew. The path beyond the riveter was hidden in shadow, but the tapping beyond it never stopped.
I can't. I won't. This isn't my shift.
The riveter's expression didn't change, but the air grew colder. The invitation remained, silent and absolute. The clock inside William's mind was screaming, but the riveter didn't move. The choice stood between them.
No.
He stepped back, his boot leaving step 355. The copper groaned as if releasing a held breath. The riveter's hammer hung motionless. His hollow amber eyes held no anger, only an ancient patience. William turned and descended, his boots hammering the iron stairs, the headlamp beam jerking with each stride. The tapping resumed behind him, steady and rhythmic, like a second heartbeat echoing through the statue's ribs.
Don't look back. Just keep moving. Get to the pedestal. Don't stop.
He spilled onto the second landing, chest heaving, and checked his watch. 12:20 a.m., only 12 minutes since he'd climbed. The sound of riveting faded as he descended, but he felt it in the railing, a persistent vibration, a pulse. At the pedestal floor, he finally looked up. The staircase was empty, but the handprint on the wall glowed bright as a warning.
Joseph has to know. The logbook. There must be something in it about the call. About what happens if you say no.
William pressed his back against the cold copper wall, forcing air into his lungs. The pedestal felt smaller than it had an hour ago.
Get up. You have to tell Joseph. He's the only one who might understand.
He staggered down the narrow service corridor, the amber emergency bulbs humming overhead. The door to the supervisor's office was 50 paces away. His watch read 12:24. Joseph would be preparing the 1 a.m. systems check, alone with his coffee and his secrets. When he reached the office door, he saw a thin band of light beneath it. A shadow moved inside.
What if he sends me home? What if he already knows and just watches?
But the alternative was silence, and silence had already let the riveter climb into his dreams.
No more secrets. This ends tonight.
He knocked 3 times, sharp, unforgiving. The sound echoed through the copper walls. The shadow behind the door stopped moving. For a long moment, nobody answered. Then the lock clicked. The door swung open. Joseph stood in the gap, his wire-rimmed glasses catching the desk lamp's glow. He looked at William's face, and his own drained of color.
I climbed. I saw him. The French worker on step 355.
Joseph didn't speak. He just stared at William as if the words had turned to ice in the air.
He spoke to me. In French. He said, I was early. My shift hadn't started yet.
Joseph closed his eyes and leaned heavily on the doorframe. He looked 20 years older.
I was hoping it would skip you. Sometimes it does. For some, the call never comes.
What is he? Why is he still here after 100 years?
Joseph walked to his desk and sat down heavily, as if the weight of the statue pressed on his shoulders. He didn't look at the locked drawer.
Bartholdi made them a promise. The French riveters. He swore they would always have work. He didn't say where.
The logbook. It has to prove this. Every word he's saying means Peter Foley and the others didn't just quit. They joined him. They're still up there.
Joseph stared at his own hands, the knuckles tight. When he spoke again, his voice was hollow.
The riveting has never stopped. Every night, the men who accepted the call are up there, working. Their hammers keep the copper skin sealed. If they stop, the statue falls. I keep a logbook. Every man ever invited is recorded. Those who climbed, they're not gone. They're just reassigned.
I need to see it. I need to know who climbed and what happened the moment they did.
Number. If you read those names, the call gets louder. It's like signing your name on the invitation.
It's already deafening. Joseph, I hear the hammers every second I am in this statue. I need to understand what I am up against.
Joseph looked past William at the door that led to the staircase. The distant tapping had become part of the silence.
You saw him. You said no. That's more than most. But the invitation doesn't expire. It'll come again, and one night you might not be strong enough.
Then show me how to be stronger. Show me the names of those who held out. There has to be a way.
The only way I know is to keep the book closed, and your feet on step 354. Now go home, William. The hour is almost over.
William didn't go home. He sat in the pedestal until the 2 a.m., silence, then walked to his apartment through the cold pre-dawn. Sleep took him into a copper maze. The spiral staircase twisted without end, and every landing held the shadow of a man with a hammer. Far above, the riveter stood on step 355, one arm raised, beckoning. His hammer struck the copper skin in a rhythm that matched William's heartbeat.
Your shift has not yet begun.
The figure stepped aside, and William saw beyond it, not the crown, but a vast iron lattice, where men in copper-green skin swung hammers without rest.
We keep her standing. Join us.
No, I said no.
The hammer came down on a rivet, and the sound was a thunderclap that threw him awake in his own bed, sheets soaked with sweat. The digital clock read 3:47 a.m. The riveting still echoed in his ears, a phantom sound that wouldn't let go.
Joseph was wrong. The book is the only way out. I'll open that drawer myself.
The following night, William crept into the supervisor's office with a small lockpick set. The tapping from the stairwell had followed him here. He worked the tension wrench, feeling for the pins. The lock resisted with a stubborn click, but refused to turn.
I told you not to.
I can't just wait for the dream to kill me. I need to know what I am fighting.
Joseph didn't shout. He walked slowly to the desk, pulled out a small brass key from his pocket, and looked at William with a sorrow that cut deeper than anger.
You won't stop. Fine, but you'll see it on my terms.
The lock clicked open. Joseph pulled the drawer out, and there it was, a thick leather logbook, its cover cracked with age, the year 1886 embossed in faded gold.
You can look, but you won't touch it. Not yet.
So close. Just a few inches away is the truth about every man who heard the call before me.
Joseph placed the logbook on the desk, his hand resting on the cover like a priest holding a cursed relic. The tapping from the staircase stopped. Joseph carefully opened the logbook to a page dated 1927. His finger stopped on a line written in faded ink.
Harold Sinclair, invited the 14th of June, 1927. Climbed. He turned further, showing a column where names had been crossed out and replaced only by dates. 47 have climbed. Their names are gone. The ones who refuse, we keep their names, but they never escape the call. It comes again, louder.
How often? Every night.
Every night it can, and each time it's harder to say no. You've already felt it in your sleep. If you ever accept, if you take the hammer, you join them. Your name becomes a date, and you rivet until the statue falls.
So, there's no cure, no way to stop it. I have to fight it every single night.
That's the burden, William. Every night you choose, and one night you might not be strong enough.
The silence in the office was absolute, but William could already feel the phantom vibration of a hammer in his bones. The logbook sat open, waiting. Later that night, alone, William returned to the office. The tapping was a steady pulse, counting down to midnight. This time the lockpick caught the wards cleanly. The drawer slid open with a soft hiss. He sat on the cold floor, the logbook in his lap, and turned to the first brittle page and let Jean-Luc Moreau, invited October 28, 1886, climbed. William traced the names that followed, 100 years of workers who had heard the call and answered. Tucked into the spine was a folded piece of parchment, smaller than the other pages. The note was written in French, in a hand that shook. La liberté exige un sacrifice. Liberty demands a sacrifice. The words sank into him like cold iron. The statue wasn't just a monument, it was a deal with the dead. He read every page, every crossed-out name, every date. By the time he closed the book, he knew the price of freedom. He sat in the dark office, the phantom hammer beating in perfect time with his pulse. The statue was alive, and it was hungry. The phantom hammer stopped. The air in the office turned cold, and the shadow in the doorway thickened into the riveter. He stood before William, hammer at his side, hollow amber eyes fixed with ancient calm.
You have seen the book. Now you understand. She needs workers. Will you join us?
The iron head glowed faintly green, an offer and a test.
He's not threatening me. He's offering the same choice he gave 47 others. I refuse. I will keep her standing by saying no, every night, for as long as it takes.
The riveter didn't change expression, but he nodded. A single slow movement that felt like a door closing. He stepped back into the shadows of the doorway, his copper skin dissolving into the darkness like morning fog. The tapping resumed above, a steady heartbeat in the iron bones of the statue. The first refusal was done. He sat alone in the silence that followed, the logbook on the floor, the weight of a century pressing on his chest. The riveter was patient. Just after dawn, William found Joseph in the supervisor's office, staring at the empty space where the logbook had rested.
I read it. All of it. The note, the names, the promise Bartholdi made.
Joseph didn't react beyond a slow, knowing nod. The anger was gone, replaced by a shared weight.
He came back. The riveter found me in here and made the offer again.
Now you know the cost. The price of keeping her standing is the night that never ends.
Has anyone ever stopped the calling? Truly stopped it?
Only by accepting. The rest of us, we just learn to live with the sound.
William reached across the desk and grasped Joseph's hand. Not a handshake, an unspoken pact.
Then I'll be a sentinel. I'll guard the secret and the statue, one refused call at a time.
The logbook went back into the drawer. The key turned. Someone had to stay awake while the dead worked. Years later, William stood in the locker room with a new hire, pointing at a faded list of rules. His voice was calm, but the weight behind it was ancient.
Rule 3. Never climb above step 354 between midnight and 2 a.m. No exceptions.
The new hire glanced up the staircase, a question forming behind his eyes. William looked up into the dark spiral, where copper and iron swallowed the light.
Because she's still being built. Every night, in the dark, she's still being built.
A distant, rhythmic tapping echoed down the stairwell, hammer on copper, steady as a heartbeat. The new hire's face drained of color, but William just turned back to the rules. The lesson was over. The riveting continued far above, a sound that would never stop, in a shift that would never end. The handprint on the wall glowed faintly, a silent welcome for the next worker who might climb. The new hire stared into the darkness, and the darkness stared back, patient as always. At dawn, William walked home along the empty island path, the ferry still hours away. He paused and turned. The statue rose against the gray sky, copper skin cold in the morning light. In one of the crown windows, a faint silhouette, the riveter, stood waiting, hammer still. William held the gaze for a breath, then turned away. He did not look back again. The statue loomed, eternal, its copper heart beating with 100 ghostly rivets. Inside, the staircase was empty, but the handprint on step 354 glowed green, waiting far above. In the iron darkness, the riveter raised his hammer and brought it down on the copper. The sound echoed down the empty stairwell, a heartbeat that would never stop. William walked into the city, and the statue remained behind him, still being built. And somewhere in the copper dark, the riveter waited for the next invitation. Patient, eternal.